think we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody to part two of Setup to Success, the essential tactics of hardware asset management. In this webinar today, we're going to discuss the HAM maturity assessment and more specifically focusing around those crawl maturity items. But we're going to take a look at those, each item, so we can get a better understanding of those. This is our safe harbor notice, and it contains, if this presentation might contain some forward thinking beliefs and assumptions that is currently available to us. However, things might change before the actual release or may not get released. A little housekeeping today. So today's webinar is going to be 1 hour long. All the participants' audio and video have been disabled. And if you have any questions at any time, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. We have a team of experts and speakers here that we're going to field those questions, and we will do our best to answer those as they come in. So in today's agenda, we're going to start off by talking about the IT asset management capability blueprint model, what that is and why is it so important. We'll then go into an overview of what that HAM maturity assessment looks like and where to get to it from. And then we'll dive into that crawl stage and each of the 11 different maturity items that are in that crawl stage to get a better understanding of what those are and why we are going to suggest them moving to those first. So this is the IT asset management capability blueprint model. And as a ranger, we go out and talk to customers frequently, and we use this blueprint model to illustrate to our clients the critical role of trustworthy data in asset management. As you see, tier one is that trustworthy data. And I found a quote that I like to remember sometimes when I'm thinking about trustworthy data. The foundation of effective asset management is accurate, up-to-date, and reliable data. So if you're building an asset management program, you're going to need to have that trustworthy data that that everything else kind of relies on. So when we're talking about trustworthy data, we're talking about that foundational data, making sure that you have the user information and you have the locations and the departments, right? You're either going to want to make sure that it's being maintained consistently and updated in ServiceNow. Now, the other one is when you start to talk around some foundational information around HAM. We would be thinking about stock rooms and making sure stock rooms are in there and maintained, because a lot of the workflows kind of use the stockroom as a start and end place. Making sure your hardware or consumable models are input correctly and they have all the necessary information that is needed to then normalize those hardware models for you. And then finally, making sure you have those processes in place to get that asset and CI information. So one of the things that I highly recommend is you're going to have to collaborate with maybe people outside your department to get some of these things done, right? And if you're going to get the user information, you might have to go into the HR system of record and locations. Hopefully that's being kept in ServiceNow. And then, as far as again, the CI information, you want to collaborate with the ITAM folks. And so the ITAM folks are the ones that are doing your discovery. And so they're pulling back all the, capturing and pulling back all the information for those CIs that are in your instance. So, the ITAM folks are vital to regularly discovering all your assets in your environment. And when your goal should be that these assets and CIs are being scanned at least every 30 days. And when we say that, any asset or CI that's not scanned in that time frame, that 30-day time frame, is considered stale, right? And that might distort some of your metrics that you're trying to report on. So everything that builds on this trustworthy data is making sure that it's accurate and reliable and trustworthy. One of the other things that we recommend to our customers is really taking the time to consider what you want to track, right? And all making sure that you identify all the necessary attributes of those items that you want to track. How do you want to track them? Do you want to track them as an asset or versus a consumable versus I don't necessarily want to track that at all? That's going to help not to clutter up your asset or consumable models, and it's going to allow you to focus on what your organization deems important. So once you get a strong foundation of that trustworthy data, now you can start to move to that practical management. So in that trustworthy data, you know the assets you have, and in the practical management is when you start to put the emphasis on those processes and procedures to help maintain those assets through that life cycle. Now, at this time, the practical management, this could be very possibly a very manual process, right? A lot of man hours, a lot of work that needs to be done to maintain this. But this tier, emphasizes on, making sure those processes and those procedures are in place. Once you get to there, and you start to move to the next tier, is when you start to focusing on efficiencies and effectiveness through like automation and some of the other functions that are built in ServiceNow, such as request and procurement, ITSM. Asset managers, should use some of the out-of-the-box workflows to start to streamline their performance and optimize their performance in daily jobs. So, we know that the ITAM or hardware asset managers, we're supposed to keep accurate records of assets through their life cycles. So we need to be able to report on them to make these smart business decisions. And so we would want to make sure that as an ITAM or asset manager, hardware asset manager, that we are tracking it in one system. We have the visibility of where that asset is from the receiving of the asset to the disposal of the asset, the whole entire life cycle. And that there's many times that it's a very small asset management team. And there's a lot of overhead in having to maintain and update these assets. So this is the tier that we really start to get a lot of value out of the tool is when you start to automate some of these processes and these workflows in the tool and using the out-of-the-box workflows that can help you achieve those goals and improve the efficiency. In tier 4, strategic conformance, that is when we're shooting for the best in class and you're able to achieve your goals and really knocking it out of the park. Now, you remember that this blueprint serves as a valuable resource to you to assess your goals and processes and maturity throughout your ITAM your journey. So if you're doing hardware or software, you can look at this reference and kind of talk through your goals and making sure that they're on the right page. However, today we're going to be talking about the hand maturity items that are in the crawl stage. And so when the crawl stage, we're going to be worrying about the setup and configuration to help build that trustworthy data. And in later sessions, we'll have some more, another webinar or two to talk about the walk or the run stages. But today we're going to focus on the crawl stage and trustworthy data. So in the Washington release, we released a hand maturity assessment through the Success Portal. Just easily go into the Success Portal. You can go into the hand workspace. You navigate down to the, if on the right side or the left side, you navigate to the Success Portal. You can go ahead and click on that. Now from here, we built in so many customers have purchased hand solution without either installing the module or having it partially installed and not getting the full utilizing fully and bringing it to its full capability and getting the most value out of it. And some customers maybe not be aware of what the next steps are or what steps need to be done to take it to the next level. So in the Washington release, we released this hand maturity assessment that serves as a one and all-in-one adoption accelerator. So it helps you walk you through by giving you some predefined items, maturity items to follow, and it serves as a checklist of achieving these goals. So it is broken up into three different distinct phases or stages: the crawl, walk, and run. And each of these stages, items could be assigned to a success goal that then you can be able to track here. In order to get to the hand maturity, from here you'll see the little the widget, and you'll go ahead and click on the widget. Now, once you click on into the widget, you'll see that there are in the crawl phase there are 11 different maturity items that are in this phase. However, if you look at the top, there's a total of 37 in total. And we're not going to spend a whole lot of time about this, but in this phase, we're going to be focusing on your ham journey around implementation and setting up and developing your ham program. The key activities to ensure the setup and configuration of ham according to like best practices. You're going to be defining your asset models and creating stock rooms, even establishing some of these core processes from the very beginning. Also, we're going to be setting up the normalization process and making sure that your hardware models are being imported or are being created in such a way that they're are able to be normalized. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. Actually, we'll actually jump into all of these in a few minutes, but let's just jump into the next stage is the walk stage. And so after you knocked out the stage one of the crawl stage, you go into the walk stage, and these have more of the process oriented uh, some more of the kind of around the process oriented maturity items. As you see, you might have an asset refresh. One of these assets need to be recycled and replaced as they hit the end of the life cycle, or on an asset task and being able to deploy or replace or retire an asset. Another really popular one is reclaiming an asset. How do you reclaim that asset from a user that's not using it anymore, that wants to give it back to you? Or a couple of the other ones are the asset audits, being able to audit your assets quickly, and maybe an asset donation. So when we talked a little bit about like maybe disposing of it, but how do we dispose of it? And do we want to give it to a charitable organization? How do we track that? And the next stage is the run stage. And this stage is when you've already implemented and matured, advanced automated processes, to capture, that hardware asset tracking and management through the life cycle. And so now we're going to start to leverage some of the additional capabilities of the tool by using maybe zero touch refresh or asset bundles. Maybe you're a customer that's using RFID to help update your assets as they're being moved in and out of locations. Contract renewal information workflow. So as you look at the workflows, what's coming up as maintenances are coming up. You'll know what's coming up and how to react to it and how to act on that. Do you want to renew it? Do you want to take some off? Do you need to add some and buy some things? Here we're also looking at the success portal. So, we want to you guys to start to use the success portal when you're in your run stage, where you're able to set up these goals and be able to put a dollar amount to it and be able to track them to success. Right? There might be in asset management. There's a lot of moving pieces, and it's sometimes hard to track that your success. And this is a way to kind of put them down and everybody track to those goals that you'll be able to report on. So in that hand maturity, the crawl stage, and that's one of the ones we're going to be focused on today. So this is where you're going to, and this stage is where you're going to start to prepare your environment for the use of ham effectively. More mature customers might have already have some of these things in place, but we think it's very beneficial if you kind of go through these steps just to kind of make sure that you didn't miss anything and maybe identify some potential gaps that you might have done while you're setting this up. So in this stage, you will set up and configure ham, making sure that it's according to best practice. You'll establish some core processes. You'll define your consumable and hardware models and making sure that they're able to be normalized, as well as creating stock rooms and maintaining those stock rooms. Uh, as we mentioned before, stock rooms are very important in all aspects of asset management, and especially when you're talking about hardware asset management. All the workflows either begin or end in that stock room. So it's very important that those things are maintained and managed properly. So when you click into the hand maturity assessment and you click on the crawl stage, you'll see the 11 maturity items that we'll be focusing in the crawl stage. And let's dive into a couple of these. The first maturity item that we recommend doing is the ham guided setup. So after installing the ham plugin from the store, we encourage you guys to go through the ham guided setup. And this process is a step-by-step walkthrough to ensure that the necessary configurations are addressed when setting up ham, right? And so it also includes making sure that your normalization is turned on and running properly. This step isn't mandatory. We don't make you do it, but we highly recommend going through the ham guided setup to avoid missing any of those critical steps that you might want to do. One of the things that you will notice is when we go through the next slide and we look to see some of the steps in the hand guided setup, they are also some of the ones that you will have to do for your maturity items. So you'll be achieving some of those maturity items in the crawl stage as you're actually setting up, going through the hand guided setup. Here I've included a screenshot of the steps of the hand guided setup to kind of highlight the various tasks that we need attention to. As you see, when you first start off, you'll do in the configuration, you'll worry about the resource category, making sure you're set up in the content service if you're opted in, uh, around the software automation, the asset actions for both the asset and incident. It's something to make sure you're aware of. It is a field that it gets added to the incident and change records when you add HamPro. It's maybe a little additional step that you might want to address at this time when you start to set that up. It also talks about the asset lifecycle categories, the workflows, and some of the contract workflows as well. Then finally, you jump into the normalization. And right here, we want to make sure that the hardware content is being downloaded. Those jobs are running on a regular basis, and those uh, that is able to then normalize your hardware models. So, in this task, you're making sure that those jobs are running, and you actually are able to start to normalize your data. Now, I am a part of a team here at ServiceNow called the Rangers, and we're brought in to tackle some complex situations and come up and find some solutions that people are experiencing. But in our spare time, we've been creating some training material to help customers achieve value more quickly. So I encourage everybody to kind of, take a look at our YouTube series, Ask the Rangers. We have one for both hardware asset management and both software asset management. We have close to 41 SAM videos and 31 ham videos, and we're adding videos on this quite frequently. So, definitely go back and take a look at the video series overall to kind of see maybe some of the things that you might be working on or struggling on to help you. Now, I've added a QR code here to the ham guided setup video in the Ask the Ranger series. So I'm gonna leave it here for a second. So go ahead and if you want to take a copy of that QR code. The next maturity item is going to be the ham resource categories opt-in. Now, this is important to opt into asset management licensing resource categories that are included in your subscription. So, you have the flexibility to select and purchase only the resource categories that you're going to use. And then you can opt out of the other ones. So that's allowing you to cut some costs if you're not managing those assets. So you want to make sure you opt into the ones that you are using. Now, when you opt into it, you're able to do the normalization. You're going to get those asset actions. You'll be able to use those resource category items in your workflows. This usually is a one-time activity. You might want to change it if you change your contract. However, it's normally just a one-time activity. And again, if you opt out of those ham resource categories, you do that to save money. Now here's a screenshot of those new expanded resource categories that you're able to decide on, which ones you are going to opt into and pay for and which ones you're going to opt out of. Because you buy your ham subscription on subscription units. So what we did is broken this down into subscription units. You can get to it a couple of different ways, but the easiest way to do it is just kind of going through the navigation, and you can type in ham resource categories, and you'll be able to quickly navigate to this little list. From this list, you can see that those resource categories are broken up, and we added some more to help, kind of divert some of those costs and to kind of give more value to you guys. And so if you look at the end user computer, you're looking at 4 units to 1. So if you have 4 computers to 1 unit cost, and so that's that ratio. Servers we're going to keep it 1 to 1 because that's highly processed, highly computable equipment that we have a lot of information that we're tracking. However, if we're looking at the printers, we're going back down to the 10 printers to 1 subscription unit. So we did this to kind of help alleviate some of the costs to the customers. Now, on the ServiceNow doc page, we have a great article on opting in and or out of the ham license resource categories. I highly recommend kind of going here. It's a great resource to make a decision on what you need to do. The next maturity item is setting up the hardware asset workspace. And this workspace is a user-friendly design to manage all your assets within one location, one space. And this is where your asset management team is going to do most of the work. This is where they're going to live in this one workspace. And we were able to build this so that your asset management team wouldn't have to hop to the different screens and hop to the different modules and get the information. Everything was in one location for them to do all the work. Now, it does need to have a plugin installed, and so that plugin needs to be activated. Now, if you're upgrading from an older version, you might need to install this plugin manually. However, if you're doing a newer version of ham, this workspace is going to be activated by default. Now, in order to find if you have the workspace or the plugin is there. You can actually check in your plugin history, but the real simple way is to just kind of go up to you log into your system, kind of go up into the workspace, uh, I guess tab up at the top and click on it. You'll have a drop down to all the different workspaces, and if you have the ham workspace installed, it will give you that option to kind of go through that. Now, I'm not going to go through each of the breakdown of the navigation of the tool or the workspace, but we have this great video on, an overview of the hardware workspace and the different dashboards that can help you find your way around this. Stockrooms is the next item that we are going to tackle, or we're going to want you to to address. Now, why are stockrooms so important? And, what are stockrooms first, and why are they important? So, like I mentioned a couple times before, stockrooms are essential locations for most of the hardware, if not all of the hardware, out of the box workflows. So, assets are assets and consumables are received from POs into a stockroom. Um, a stockroom is where those assets are going to be inventoried. The assets and consumables, they're going to be stored and inventoried for the deployment. If they need to be transferred from one location to another, it's done through a stockroom. It's in one inventory, it moves to another inventory so that it can be deployed and used. The RMA process is started and ended in a stockroom. If you need to send, it goes back to a stockroom, where is then worked on to either be sent back to the vendor to either work on or to replace, or does the vendor come in and do the repair on site? And finally, disposal, right? And so if you're disposing of assets, you're building that inventory into you're saving all that your assets in the inventory. When you have designated or identified assets that need to be disposed in your inventory, you build a lot and you dispose your assets from an inventory, from a stock room. So again, it's really important that all, if not, all of the out of the box workflows use stock rooms. And so stockrooms play a crucial role in the automation and being able to use the automation of the tool. So in making and maintaining that trustworthy data. Now, we just released this great new stockroom UI, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail, but with this new UI, you're able to start to see, what stockroom tasks they have at a particular stockroom or a warehouse. You're able to see how many stock orders they have, how many RMA orders they have, transfer orders. So you have these major tiles up here to kind of tell you what is going on and what you need to do. You have definitely you have an insight of assets and hardware and software, consumable assets that are in your stock, and then you also have these stock rules on the other side. And as you get a little bit more mature, you're going to want to kind of look at what those stock rules do and how to set those up. Those are rules to kind of help notify the asset managers when stock levels are low. They could possibly create a PO request, or maybe even automatically start a transfer order from one stock room to another. The other thing that is fairly new is the service locations and the distribution channels. So this is a fairly new feature, but we'll address this a little bit later in the later walk or the run stage. But it is in a way to kind of help maintain your inventory and get your inventory on time. So when you're actually setting up a stock room, there's a couple things that you need to make sure you have in any time. So it's kind of the mandatory thing. So you want to make sure you have a unique a name. It needs to be associated to a location. It needs to have a manager. So who's going to manage that stock room? Who's going to be responsible for that stock room, as well as that type. So is that a warehouse? Is it a stock room? Is it a personal stock room? These are all different types that that you have to choose from. So on the community site, we have this really great quick start guide to stock rooms. You know, it has a lot of great videos and documentation to help you get started and understand how to run and operate the stock rooms. I'm gonna leave this here for a second to go ahead and look at the QR code. Now the Rangers also have our series out. We have 5 videos that directly talk about the stock rooms currently up there. The first one is how to create a stock room using the workspace, using stock rules to control those inventory, configuring service locations, the setup and management, understanding distribution channels and configuration and the implementation of that, and starting to get a little bit more in the maturity is using the palettes and aisles and spaces, that capability, those features in ServiceNow. So these are 5 videos that you can find out on that our YouTube channel, Ask the Ranger Hardware Asset Management. And the next maturity item is the creation of hardware models. Hardware models and the creating hardware models is a crucial step in establishing that trustworthy data within hardware asset management. It is the cornerstone of the HAM data. So, by making sure that you're capturing all this essential information up front, it will allow your hardware models to be normalized, which will then improve your reporting. There are 4 things that we want to consider essential as when you set up your hardware models. The first is the manufacturer. You definitely want to know that. The product name, the product model number, as well as the model category. Knowing if it's a server versus a mobile device versus a network gear. So knowing what the model category is going to allow that to help normalize that information. Now, when you're doing the hardware models, there are some attributes that you can think about getting or adding on to your models. Now, these attributes would then be trickling down into the assets. So, if you wanted to be able to report on some of these model attributes, you'll be able to do that on the asset record because you're creating them on the hardware model. Now, some of those model attributes you can consider would be asset tracking. Determine whether you create an asset or not. So, an example of this would be consumables. So, in the example of consumables, you would not want that to create an asset for it. You would want to treat it as a consumable. So you're able to make that distinction on the model. The acquisition method, you're able to specify if these assets or these items are being purchased or leased. You can help with that, with those workflows and reporting on that. Unit cost and salvage value, when you're starting to talk about financial planning and estimating those values can be valuable. Life cycle information. So when those assets are being normalized, the life cycle information of that model is then being populated into your system. So being able to normalize it and understand where that model is in the life cycle helps you for better planning. Now, for all the asset managers out there that are focusing around data center assets and rack management, we do have a couple attributes around dimension and power usage that kind of help you manage and maintain that rack elevations that you have to adhere to. And by accurately creating and managing these hardware models are only going to strengthen your integrity of your hardware data and improve your overall asset management processes. So it's really important to make sure that you're capturing all this information from the get-go. So once these hardware models get in there, we're going to really want to make sure that they're getting normalized. And so normalizing your making sure your asset models are being normalized and consumable models are being normalized is going to be your next kind of phase, right? It's going to help you with your reporting. It's something that you're going to want to address to the next. So making sure that they are being normalized will be the next, maturity item that we're talking about. So one of the other things that we recommend, and it's one of the things that can help with this normalization, is setting up NDS, normalization data services, and that's not directly called out right here, but it does increase your normalization rates. And this is a service that normalizes the company field across the platform. So it's going to touch ITSM, and all of the other modules that are in the system. So it's going to go across the platform. It's going to normalize those company names. Now, there is a guided setup that will walk you through how to configure each of those properties, and then it runs the properties to make sure that the data is being updated that's already in your instance. Now, you only have to do this step once, the normalization data services one, unless you do it and then later install SAM Pro. If that's the case, then you might need to go back to your normalization data services and then rerun that guided setup. So what is hardware normalization, right? So that's the visibility of assets that are trusted and cleaned in a way that you're able to make some decisions. So you're able to uh, normalize and what that is going to be called across the company. And so you could have assets coming in from multiple different ways through discovery, through human intervention by typing them in, by loading them in on a spreadsheet. However, when they start to come in, they can come in multiple different ways, right? In this example, we have MacBook Pro coming in as MacBook Pro Apple 15 Apple with the same model number. And then we have the same model number, but this one looks like it was maybe fat fingered by somebody and did the capital Mac and then Book Pro. And the A in Apple isn't updated. So it's a little different. And right now, this is considered two different models. Oh, and there's another one because guess what? Somebody spelled this totally different. They put a hyphen in it, and then Apple, they spelt it wrong. Now, we know as asset managers that this can be done, and this might be something that you run across. But what ServiceNow does is it takes all these and it normalizes it into what it's supposed to be. An Apple MacBook Pro 15 in the right model number. And this way, you're able to take all those different computers and count them as that one model. It increases your reliability on the reporting, and it allows you to get a better understanding of where your assets are in the life cycle. Now, we have a couple things when we start to look around. We talk about normalization of those hardware models and your asset estate. So on your hardware model, there's a section called normalization. Now, these are three of the very common, what you'll see commonly when you look at your hardware models. The first one on the left, on the upper left, is normalized. And you see that it's fully normalized with the manufacturer, product, and model. You also see that the device has been normalized as well. One thing to notice, and I want to call out here, is when you normalize or a field is normalized, you'll see that it is grayed out and it cannot be updated. So on the normalized one, you'll see that all those fields are being now normalized and they cannot be updated manually. On the one on the right, you see that it's partially normalized. So based off of that model that you put in, it was only able to find the manufacturer and the product name and not the product number. So this is why it's called partially normalized. If in order to make this normalized or manually normalized, you're able to go into that model field and type in the correct model number, and that would make this manually normalized. Uh, that's one way to kind of update that to normalized. Now, the other one is that you might run across would be the match not found. Now, this I said it's kind of common, but it's really not too common because you should have the manufacturer at least coming in and should have some of the product information coming in as well. But if you do, this is an example where you match not found. It gives you an opportunity to go out and research what this asset is or this model is and update it correctly in your system so that it can then be processed and normalized. We also have some out-of-the-box normalization reports on hardware as well as on consumables. Again, you would want to make sure that these reports or your normalization reports are mostly normalized. I mean, when we try to talk to customers, we try to get those normalization rates above 90%. 90%. And so that way you're able to start to, make sure that your, information is being properly recorded and put together. Now on the community, they have a great little site article place where it says quick start guide to normalization. Here we have a lot of videos and more documentation. I've added a QR code so you guys can go ahead and click and go to that. As well as we have a Ranger series video normalization data services plugin and the guided setup. So two different ways to make sure that your normalization is getting achieved and you're getting the most value from the tool. The next maturity item in this stage that we're going to be talking about is the content lookup portal. Now, as an asset manager, you might not have all the information when you go ahead and create that model. You might be missing like the product name or the model number. And what this does is the content lookup portal gives asset management personnel the visibility into all the models that are and the model numbers that are stored in the content service library. So once you get in the plugin and you're able to then navigate to the workspace and then over into the content lookup, you will see these two tiles. The one being the hardware products and the other one being hardware model numbers. And if you click on, view all, it will pop up and it will show you all the hardware products that are in the content library. The name, the manufacturer, the type, and the version. And so you're able to, quickly kind of go through this and start to get the information filters down into the information that's needed. Here's a QR code to installing the content library portal, how to install it and kind of how to do some searches. Now I've shown you many of these um, links are going to be to the Ask the Ranger series or the Now Create or the service docs. I do recommend favoriting those and going back to those and making sure that these are some great resources and making sure you get the most bang from your buck is in kind of reviewing these and understanding how to get the most out of the tool. So as an asset manager, it can be difficult to track all of your requests that are coming in and kind of that flow of the requests. Where is it at? Who's supposed to get one widget? Who's supposed to get this computer? So in this stage, right, and so in this maturity item, we're going to start to make sure that you understand or the asset management team has a place to kind of work from, right? It standardizes the way that folks are going to be able to request that hardware, that standard hardware. So, through creating a catalog request item, those end users are able to go in and make a request, and the asset management team is then able to gain that value of the visibility into all these requests and able to track them all the way through, from the request through the approval to the actual deployment. They're able to track and report on those, that flow. Now we've talked a lot about process, and one thing that I want to highlight is I'm sure that everybody knows that's on the call that asset management is 80% process and 20% data. And so we can always put the data in; it can always be up to date. But what are those processes that are behind it to keep that information up to date and accurate? Now, in the Now Create the Hardware Asset Management Process Guide is a great reference to all the processes of the out-of-the-box workflows that ServiceNow has. Now, each of the ones will have a diagram that walks you through, or kind of stream with swim lanes to walk you through, as well as it provides the RACI and a breakdown of who's responsible for each one of those process steps. It also goes down to break down each step and what is important and how it needs to be done. So again, the Hardware Asset Management Process Guide is on Now Create. It is a great resource. I highly recommend anybody that's in hardware asset management definitely take a look at this to kind of make sure your processes are lining up. Now, the Ask the Ranger series, we do have 4 videos around the hardware request. The first one being creating and requesting a basic catalog item. So how do you create that catalog item and set up the request? Sourcing a hardware an asset request by initiating and populating a fulfillment process. Source a request or a transfer order. So how are you going to get it moved from one location to another if you have it in stock? Or source a request by employing a purchase order. How do you streamline a purchase order to get that done? So these are all QR codes to our YouTube channel. I'll leave this up for a second to have you guys make a copy. So once you get in there and you're able to have a request and all of your requests are coming in, as an asset manager, you're going to need to make some, larger orders or possibly do a restocking of your inventory and of a stock room when they start to run low on items. So being able to create a bulk stock order is going to be important. By setting up this catalog item, it gives your asset management team and your stockroom managers an access way to create these orders. And this might set up some time. Being able to go to one spot, being able to click on the catalog request, and being able to report that it is definitely going to save some time. And it's possibly going to save some confusion, right? So it's all going to be going one spot. Did you order it? Did you order it? I put it in the ServiceNow. I put a request in, and here's the information. Here's the tracking information for it. So, it's definitely something that, as an asset manager, that's the next step, right? So making sure that your assets are being able to order your stock inventory. So this is a great segue into our Ask the Ranger series, creating an inventory stock order. So how do you go ahead and create that? So once you're in there, how do you set that up? And this is a great guide to how to do that. So after you receive those assets, and those assets have been received, are ordered, our next item is going to be focusing on setting up your mobile app to receive those assets on that PO that you just ordered. Now, this typically is a manual process, and so this is an easy way to not to fat finger those numbers or those serial numbers, and making sure that you're taking the human intervention out of it, and you're actually doing a scan. And so you want to make sure you do the mobile app It's either on the Google or the App Store, the Apple Store. But what this does, it allows you to receive your assets on your mobile phone, or you give the uh, your technician the roles that is able to use the app, and they're able to go in and scan those barcodes or the serial numbers and scan them right those assets right into your system, taking that uh, manual intervention out. So later in the walk stage in your hand maturity, you're going to start to use this mobile app a little bit more, right? You'll be able to use this app to do, conduct audits to making sure that you know what's in that room. Audits can be either scheduled or ad hoc. So making sure you know where your assets are through their life cycle is important. And the reason why we chose this one first is, this is the first step, right? You're going to want to make sure that those assets are coming in properly and being updated on a normal basis and not being fat fingered. Now, the final maturity item in the crawl stage is around the asset disposal and making sure you set up that asset disposal process. So as an asset manager, you're going to want to know, you know, what assets were disposed, when they were disposed. You're going to need to know have the ability to run reports on that, and even possibly produce some of the certificates of disposal or destruction in case you were in an audit or something. So in this way, you're actually setting up that transparent view into your asset disposal workflow. And this is the reason why we did it. We want to make sure we have the beginning of the cycle of making sure the assets come in, and you're going to want to make sure the assets go out. So these are the first two processes, core processes that we're looking for you to kind of build that workflow or start to use the out of the box workflows to automate some of your information to keep that information up to date. Now, we do have a how to generate a disposal order on our YouTube channel. If you want to go out and take a look on how to set that up and to create a disposal order. Just like I said, this order will walk you through each of the steps that are needed through that disposal order, making it very transparent to when the shipment went out, what is the shipment's number, and even tracking that the certificate of disposal, you can even attach it to that disposal order. So I just want to kind of close up by, make sure that you check out all of our YouTube videos, playlist on Ask the Rangers. Here's a QR code. We have a number of videos up there already, and many, many more coming. We also have some additional resources. I highly recommend going out and checking. Number one being Now Create. We saw the process guide is number one, I would say, checking out there. Now Learning has some great ham instructional courses to kind of get you up to speed if you were lacking some information or wanted to get some more information from the ServiceNow team. The community has a new and improved look and feel to it. So please go out and take a look out there for some articles and blogs and information of even what's up to come. So it's a good way to stay connected to folks that are in the same discipline in the community. And the ServiceNow docs is always a good place for you to kind of maybe even start your investigation to get some more knowledge around a feature or functionality that the tool does have to offer. So with that, I want to thank everybody for the time today. We have a couple minutes left. Are there any questions in the chat that we want to bring up, or?
There's not too many. Just answering one right now, actually, in the Q&A about whether there was a similar type session for software asset management. And yes, we have recorded those sessions, and they are posted in the Ask a Ranger software asset management playlist. I'll post that to the chat here in a minute. The sessions have already happened. We have recorded them, just like this session will be recorded or has been recorded and posted shortly. We posted shortly to our hardware asset management playlist. So you'll be able to get a copy of it there for all the QR codes. I know some of them went by pretty fast, but they'll be there in the video on YouTube, so you can just pause it and go from there. And with that, I don't think there's too much else, Randy, unless somebody else has any other questions you want to toss in the Q&A or raise their hand. Oh, Tina's got a question. Sorry, Tina. I'll allow you to talk here. One moment. Oh, I think we lost Tina. So, okay, if anybody has a question, they can raise their hand and we can take you off mute and you could ask away if you'd like. Nothing coming in. Okay. Just posting the link to our software asset management playlist. Okay, well, it looks like it's pretty quiet here, Randy, so I guess we can probably go ahead and end this one.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you guys in future webinars, and good luck with your ham journey.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.